Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Soul Motorcycling Podcast. We want to say thank you guys for all your support and tuning in. We're just about 2 listeners shy of having 100 listeners for all of our episodes, so thank you very much. You know, just like knocking out miles, hey, we all got to start somewhere. Now get out there and share this with all your friends, and then also, this is our very first episode with video, so you actually get to see how nerdy we really are.
Yeah, in this episode, we'll discuss our appreciation of motorcycles. We'll go over the things that we like, what we don't like, what kinds of bikes we would like to ride, and the appreciation we have for different styles that don't always align with our aesthetic. We also want to discuss rider stereotypes, and while shit talking is definitely a part of riding culture, we want to be able to make sure that we can just be stoked about someone else's style because they bring something different to the table every single time.
Cool. And we're also going to talk about how our personal preferences regarding the motorcycle community and bikes, and how opinions and experience shape our views. We're also going to have a very fascinating discussion about how maybe like the bike scene was the original social media. Something to think about.
Yeah, and then we're going to wrap up the episode by discussing whether we ride with music or not and the reasons behind those choices, because Chris and I are very different when it comes to that. And we also break down our riding soundtracks and what kind of songs we like to listen to on long rides or big trips and how they change with different environments. We'll also go over how music has influenced our riding styles and what we're into and the styles of bikes we like. We want to emphasize the fact that the best parts of the motorcycle community is going to be the diversity and the fact that everyone has a different style and preference, but everybody brings something competitive to the table that everyone can enjoy. You know, riding motorcycles is just really fucking cool.
Absolutely, man. So, thanks for tuning in and have a listen and enjoy the episode. All right,
cool. Welcome to the Soul Motorcycling Podcast. I'm Jason. I got my associate Chris here today. We're going to get started on a new episode. So today, let's start and talk about what bikes we think are cool and which ones aren't, and how it's okay if what you think is cool isn't really cool, or vice versa.
Right.
Because I don't want everyone to think that all we do is talk about Harleys all the time, even though they're beyond my favorite kind of motorcycle ever. I fucking love them. Yeah, dude, I know. Inked up, down for life, whatever. But like, I don't want people to think that everybody is just solely locked in to one bike. You know, the same way people are like, you're either a Ford or a Chevy kind of guy. Like some people are like American or metric or one or the other. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's a motor and 2 wheels and it makes you feel alive. So like, who gives a shit? But
exactly.
But like for you, what would your, if Harleys didn't exist, what would be like the kind of bike that you'd be looking for? Or if it doesn't matter, like what is your next favorite thing to a Harley?
Right. And, you know, to kind of touch on your point real quick, I love my Harley. I will ride it till I die. But I'm also, you know, a motorcycle fan. I've ridden a bunch of bikes, you know, like I just love motorcycles and they're all pretty cool. The other bike that I personally own outside of my Harley, I have a 2008 Triumph Bonneville 900.
Yeah.
So I like that classic cafe style, you know, the thing is super light. It rips. I like the heritage, you know, that comes along with the British motorcycles, that kind of stuff. I also ridden a Ducati. That was pretty sweet. But, you know, I kind of like the more vintage, raw, you know, that makes me that when I ride it, I feel like I'm old school. I'm like when I get on my Bonneville, like Steve McQueen, you know, that kind of thing. I'm also a big fan of supermoto bikes and naked bikes too. I'd really like to ride that Indian FTR 1200. I think it would be, but I know better. I think the next bike I want to get actually is I want to build a supermoto, street legal supermoto bike. So that's kind of where I'm looking at. Yeah. But how about yourself outside of?
Dude, as close to a chopper as I can get, which means that you can literally do anything. You know, I'm with you. I like the older school kind of stuff. I like the vintage style bikes. I hate fuel injected bikes. I get it. They're more reliable. You don't got to wait for them to warm up. They're all electric start, whatever. But I think that there's something special about these older bikes, you know, that other people have ridden before. That there's some kind of history behind them, you know, like whether the history was it sat in a garage for 50 years until I found it or somebody else found it and I got it from them or whatever the story is, they're more hands-on. Like you're required to understand how the bike works, you know, like with the Honda Shadow I have. Like, that's my second favorite bike. It's the first bike I've ever owned, worked on, whatever. I'll never get rid of that thing, even though it's a garden piece right now, but I like the idea that I'm forced to be aware of how the bike works, how it operates. So if it breaks down, I know what I'm doing. And it's not that I have to get it towed home and plug in a laptop to be like, oh, what's the codes? Where's this here? Like, no, there's only like 10 wires on the whole thing. And I know which each one does. I know how the system works. So I get the confidence that if I'm taking this vintage piece of junk that's 100 years old or 50 years old or whatever, and I'm riding down the road, I can go to any auto parts store and find something that'll work, or I can fix it on the side and be good to go. And it's whatever, but that's also if you have all the money in the world to spend on these. But
for sure,
but for like a bike that isn't a Harley, I'm kind of in between, like because the way the bike looks, I could care less about. Like, I can make it look the way I want later. I'm more focused on the motor. So if it wasn't a Harley, it would probably be one of those like 2-cylinder Triumphs, because I think it looks cool how they bubble out the top and have the sweep out exhaust. Or it'd be, making a chopped out CB 750 or something. Because I just think it's so cool. You got these little 4-cylinder bangers, and it's like the motor is huge. Right. So it's like, I took an engine out of a pickup truck and put it on a bike. That's the way I look at it. So I think something older, not a specific model, but more a specific motor would be what I'd be looking for.
That's cool. And, like you were touching on having to do stuff on your bike. And I definitely think no matter what bike you have, you need to know how to do basic maintenance on it and stuff. And there was a statement that somebody told me the other day. It's like, how are you going to know how your bike works if you don't work on your bike?
Oh yeah,
right. 100%. Does that make it's some Shaolin monk shit right there?
No, you're good, but it doesn't. And people shouldn't be afraid of it to begin with, because even if you get a newer bike, even though I hate the computer aspect of it and whatever, like even just understanding tire pressure, how to change your oil, or like how to make a clutch adjustment or a throttle adjustment, or like knowing why you put 91 octane versus cheap gas in there. Because you could put anything in these things and they'll run. But like, I want it to last longer, especially on older bikes, I want those fuel injectors and the needles to stay clean. Like, I want to put more premium gas, like the little things, just making sure that you don't have to know how the motor works entirely. You should. But like, don't be afraid of just knowing, hey, I know that if I touch this knob, it revs higher or revs lower. And I know that if I change this, it changes the tension on things, like, because even just the littlest thing of just grabbing, the basic tools you have in your shitty little toolbox in the corner of your closet or garage, you can still do something to the bike to make it better for you and have just a slightly better understanding of what it is. That way, if you break down, if you're really in the shit, or if it's something as simple like, hey, my charging system doesn't work and I just got to push start my 1,300-pound road climb. Like, gives you or
is your throttle cable going to blow up on the freeway?
Oh my God. Yeah. And that was a learning curve for me, because I was just like, 883 doesn't have a whole lot of power, and then you just put a good throttle cable on it that's not a piece of shit, and you're like, where did this bike come from? I've been handicapped the whole time.
I know, right?
But yeah,
gotcha.
No, I was just saying, because I like the idea that you can get some confidence out of it, even if it feels like in the beginning that you don't know much, but have some kind of understanding. It makes people a little more confident when they're in groups of people and they're getting like into the weeds about how it works. Like, oh, I want a knucklehead for this, or a panhead for this, or like, oh, twin cams are better than M8s, da-da-da-da-da, or whatever brand or motor you're talking about. You can, instead of just being like, yeah, I bought it and I ride it, you can have a couple more entryways of joining that conversation to feel included, or not feel like you're just the dumbest person in the world. Because it's not going to matter. You're going to, like, especially in motorcycling, you're going to meet somebody way fucking smarter than you, knows way more, and like, they'll make you feel like the dumbest person ever. Like you or me, even with the experience we have, obviously you more than me, but like, I can talk about how I understand how motors work and, working on your own bike and stuff. But like, I can't have those same conversations with Brad. I mean, like, that fool's been building bikes. He was raised on bikes. He's been building them since he was a kid with his dad. So like, his knowledge base is way bigger than mine, so, but to be able to have a couple talking points to where you can get into the conversation, to where you can be told and explained thoroughly what it is instead of just being lost the whole time. That gives people more confidence to where they'll be like, yeah, dude, I'm not afraid to get on my bike, or like, maybe I'm not going to go to bike night and meet people, because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know that one opportunity, like, yeah, dude, I know how to push start my bike, and it happened to me once. So I'm not worried about riding 30 minutes out of town to go meet up with some people I've never met and go for a ride, or acquaintances of acquaintances or whatnot. Because the more you get out there and the more you ride, the better off you're going to be. Like, there's really no downside to it.
No, for sure. Not only are you getting the experience, but, I think when you know how something works, and that kind of gives, you like reverse engineering, like if I apply this, or how's this, this adjustment going to make the difference, and what it is that I'm looking for in a bike too. And like, the more you know about, performance aspects, stopping quickly, how my suspension works, it kind of changes your thought process and direction that you're wanting to go. I think, my biggest thing is ride as many different bikes as you possibly can.
Oh yeah.
Like they're all super cool, and it's all right, and just get something to ride and be proud of it, call it your own, and that sort of thing.
You're 100% right. I don't think anybody's married to a specific bike. Like, even the most hardcore Harley people I know, like, they still know about other bikes. Like, when people ask me what my first bike should be, I tell them, first off, it shouldn't matter. You should just get a bike, right? Get practicing, get on it, get more experience. But me personally, I usually recommend like older metric bikes, like Hondas or Yamahas or something. Because you can spend $3 or $4 grand to get a decent running bike. Yeah, it's going to be beat up, might have a couple scratches and dents or whatever. But like, you can spend $3 or $4 grand on one of those, ride it, and a year later you can sell it for exactly what you bought it for, because those things are so damn reliable compared to most bikes. And the first bike you get isn't going to be the last bike you ever own. That bike is just telling you what you want out of a bike and what you need out of a bike for your next time getting one.
Right. And the good thing about those bikes too is, like, you got it for that specific reason, because you're new to riding. You know how many new riders are coming on, and you just pass it on. I mean, the sadness of getting rid of one of your first bike, but at the same time, like, I remember I sold a bike to a kid that, was about $300 short, and he's bringing out lunch money and pocket lint and change. And I'm just like,
dude, I'll take what you got, dude.
Just take what. Wait, you know what? And here's $20 back, so you can get your first tank of gas.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have a jacket? Here's an extra jacket for you.
Yeah, because then you're just passing it on, and then that way, when that person, hopefully they stick with it and figure out how to be safe and consistent on the bike. But maybe later down the line, when they're on their 10th bike or whatever, and they're gonna flip one or get rid of one, just downsize or whatever, that they're in the same situation. They got somebody else that's just showing up with their lunch money, trying to be like, hey, dude, I hate this jacket. It doesn't fit me right. You need a jacket. Here's a jacket. Hey, this is a helmet. It's not the greatest, but hey, here's a helmet. Like, now you know why you want a better helmet or whatever. Here, that way you're ready to go.
Sure.
So yeah, I like that a lot.
And it's funny that you brought up the whole truck analogy. Like, are you a Dodge guy, you a Chevy guy, and that sort of stuff? Have you found in motorcycling that people will just shit on a brand because it's a brand?
I think like with American made cars, the biggest ones I see are going to be Chevy and Ford. Those are going to be the most divisive. Dodge guys, it's like a three-way tie.
We're superior.
Each other more.
We're superior.
It's funny because I like Chevys. Those are my favorite. They got a bolt on everything, so they're super easy to work on. They're reliable. There's plenty of them. And I shit on Fords all the time, because I'm like, dude, fuck that. But like, my favorite truck I've ever owned was a 1992 Ford Ranger. Like, the Ranger series is my exception.
Yeah,
those are some of the best trucks ever. But generally speaking, every other Ford, I'm like, bro, it could be a little more square. It could be a Chevy. It could have a little more horsepower, a little more reliable. It could be a Chevy. But I think in the motorcycle world, what I notice most would probably be, Harleys and BMWs. Those would be like the Ford and Chevy, because, you can argue that they're different, but in reality, they're pretty similar, in what they are. They're the top two, in my personal opinion experience, the top two most expensive high-end brands that you can get. While, you can shit on Harleys all day. They're big, heavy boats. They're unreliable. They break down, whatever. That's why I like them. And you got BMWs, just as expensive, a little more reliable, harder to work on the motor,
that front end suspension that are on BMWs is absolutely
so
amazing.
Sweet,
you know, they got the, like, coming out of the gate, their setup is way better than Harley. It's just not a Harley. It's just not American. It just doesn't have that chop. It just doesn't have what I'm looking for. But, like, you know, I could pick from both and be like, yeah, I like both kinds of bikes. You know, me personally, I'd probably never buy a BMW unless it's like an old vintage one, because I just like any brand of older bike, because that's my jam. But, like, if I was going to pick between, you know, like a Pan America and then a BMW, what are they, like, GS 1300s or whatever, you know, I'm going to go pick the Harley one, even though the Pan America is not as well worked or thought out as the BMW is, because it's relatively new for what it's only a couple years old. It's in its infancy of being a motor and a style of bike. It's trying to jump in the market that BMW's already been in. Well, those GSs have been around for, 15, 20 years. They kind of already got everything worked in and are perfecting their craft. So if I had to choose between, I'm going to go to a Harley, not just because of the badge, but I think that more squared off, like futuristic technical machinery work looking kind of deal. I like that look a little bit more than the standard, I forget what they call that style of motor where the cylinders go sideways. It's kind of like
a box. I think it's a Boxster
engine. Yeah. Like Subarus, Porsches, that kind of thing.
I did put my eyes on my new motorcycle. So I have it's going to be a minute, but I've got my eyes on it.
What are you looking at?
What do you think I'm looking at?
I'm assuming it's going to be a Road Glide ST. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, not quite the ST. I think I'm just going to get the the blue Road Glide, new one, 24.
The 24. Oh, the one with the two-tone blue paint job and those new rims.
It's just solid blue.
Oh, but it's got those like razor blade rims though.
Kind of, yeah.
Or is it the 13-spoke Invader looking?
No, it's kind of like the Enforcer rims, but updated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, dude, that blue is awesome. I was like, oh, cool, man.
Dude, for me, like, I'm not looking at another bike because, I've only had the Road King for 2 years and I've already dumped more money than I want to in that thing.
Right.
And, I got it as your challenge to be like, hey, we got to go do, the Cop Rodeo or whatever. And I'm well, I'm not going to BMW, so I'm going to get a Harley. Got that thing. But I was talking with the old lady earlier because, I've downsized. I've sold a lot of my bikes, so now I'm down to just a couple, and I sold the Chevy and everything, so I need to get another late 60s early 70s Chevy long bed slam down. Cool. Basically I'm just being a poser and ripping off all of Brad's style, because everything he's into, I'm into. I love all that shit he's got, like all those whatever. But and I want to get 2 more Sportsters. One, I want to remake the old one I had if I can't get it back from that kid. But I don't expect to get it back because, that's his first bike. Like we were talking about setting people up.
Right.
So I want to get one that I can kind of chop out and make an aggressive, just cruising bike again. I want to get another Sportster to make like a stunt bike so I can start practicing wheelies and doing all the dumb shit that the cool kids on Instagram do. Because I was thinking about going a Dyna route, but I don't. Those things are too overpriced.
It's cool. It's cooler. It's cool. It's cooler.
I'd rather make a Sportster look like a Dyna. I'll do that. It's a little cheaper.
That's funny that you brought up Instagram, and I kind of was thinking about this the other day. That everybody, every time you look at a bike, that sort of stuff, we judge it in our brain like that is cool or that's lame or whatever. And you see, a lot of thank goodness to Instagram because I've been it gives you exposure to whatever, but I think like the bike scene was like the original live version of social media. Like you're gonna, I like it or I don't, and then you go into there and you get whether it's to your buddies or in your own head. Now you're talking all this shit in comments and that sort of thing. So I don't know. It's just kind of a random thought that I got. And
no, that makes total sense. They are very similar. Like when you go to bike meets or bike night or whatever. Like bike night's not my thing. I'm not a huge fan of it. I mean, I know you go all the time, but I'm. To me, it's exactly like what you're saying. It's Instagram Live. It's, you got all these different people witnessing something at the same time. It's super cool seeing that cultural melting pot of different kinds of motorcycles just showing up. Like you got all the dudes on crotch rockets that are probably going to act like jackasses while the cops are around. You got different motorcycle clubs there, and you got other people that are just trying to meet people and learn to ride or like just be social with people. But like even on Instagram, even before I was super in the motorcycle scene, when I started paying attention more on Instagram and following like all these chopper guys pages and, all these other like King of the Baggers and Thrash and Supply Co and all these people in the motorcycle industry, you start seeing crazier and crazier things. Like bikes I would have never fathomed seeing the way they're built or what they're doing, which is probably why I'm so fascinated with the chopper culture to begin with, because everything's so unique. But like, you know, I thought T-bars were just for dynas, you know, and then the people put them on Sportsters just to make them look like dynas. And then I'm seeing these guys do stunts on doing T-bar setups on any kind of bike. And I'm like, oh, and then, you know, I do it and I'm like, oh, this is cool. But then dude, to me, it just feels better. I like T-bar setups because it's just tighter. It's a little bit better than having ape hangers or bull horns or whatever else people have on. You know, those factory 47 meat hooks. You know, if I'm doing super long rides, I understand why you like those. But like me, I'm not a high-speed motorcyclist. Do I go really fast to what most people want? Sure. But when I say high speed, I'm not like on a crotch rocket trying to hit triple digits every time. Sometimes, you know, I'll hit triple digits when I need to. But like, I like the slower stuff. I like the clutch control, the balance in the bike when it's not moving, dodging cones kind of deal. So, you know, I'm just, dude,
have you, and dude, I have anybody listening, whatever you ride, and especially if it's a Harley, put T-bars on it.
Oh,
like,
dude.
It hands down outside of the suspension, like probably the best performance upgrade I've done to my bike.
So comfortable. And for me, it makes me feel like my younger days, right? Decade and a half ago, whatever. When like before I was really into motorcycling, like that 7-year hiatus, right? Like I talked about how I got on a bike, was like, it's too dangerous for me. And I didn't get on for a while. During that interim period, when I was living in Florida, I was in a motorcycle group, or not a motorcycle group, but a bicyclist group, right? It was all these guys on fixed gears and out in Jacksonville, Florida. If you're ever out there,
I knew you were a fixie. Dude,
100%.
That explains gear, so much.
So much, yeah. So fixed gear, no brakes, just being a degenerate, dodging traffic, splitting lanes on the surface streets, just being one of those assholes that everyone's seen on a bike, you know, like messenger bike style thing. And my favorite thing to do with it is I take the regular handlebars off and I just go buy a piece of tube. And I could, literally, it would be the size of a ruler. It would only be 12 inches long. And I'd slap that in. So my hands are like this because I could dodge traffic better if I was a smaller unit. So it's literally the bars weren't wider than my chest. So if I'm dipping through traffic, well, traffic's got to stand still or moving because I was crazy. You know, like it was nice and tight. And I was already used to balancing and leaning and doing stuff like that. So as soon as I got on a motorcycle and I was like, I'm going to try T-bars out because they look cool. And I did it. It felt so natural. I felt so in it. And I was like, oh, this is way better. You know, because I've done both styles of handlebars. But I swear by T-bars. They are so much better.
Now, kind of, you know, the more you see, it helps develop like that. And, you know, I remember the feeling of being judged when I was a very new rider and that sort of thing, you know, but I've also found that in my own brain, when the live Instagrams going off and that sort of stuff, my level of judge of what I'm judging and looking at has changed a little bit. Like now it's so specific. It's like, oh, you know, well, I see why they went with the Öhlins instead of the Legends, or, oh man, that's a full crowd setup. Like dude's got some bank. Like, and I'm like,
dude that's spent $4,000 on something he could have spent $800 on. Like, he's big pimping right now.
And I think that's one thing I wanted to bring up is a lot of these performance mods, you don't have to do it at the highest level. You can still do it within a budget, which is pretty cool. But
anything's better than stock. Like even if you know, you're going like, oh, well, I'm changing out my shocks and I'm only buying the $300 pair of shocks. Like, you're not spending $1,200 like some people, but any aftermarket suspension or any aftermarket anything, 9 times out of 10 is going to be way better than the stock performance setup.
Sure.
So it's like, inch your way up. Like, go what you're looking for. Like maybe like, oh, this is so cheap because the suspension is slightly stiffer, but it raised up the rear end for me. So I got half of what I was looking for. Now I can justify, I'm going to spend $1,200 next time. Or, hey, I didn't need it. I got everything I wanted out of it. And I spent $300 instead of $1,200. You know? Right.
And then, you know, like when I did my bar setup, it's like I got out of the whole deal, you know, couple days and $600 is like, all right, I'll take it because it's good. Now, would I like to have all the high end stuff? For sure, but I'm not too worried about it. You know, like back to the judging and new riders, and we joke around and we call ourselves nerds a lot because of the level that we're in there. But also when we're talking shit, you know, we also kind of like to call other people nerds too.
Oh, dude,
like,
nerds is a unanimous. Yeah, dude,
you're right.
I call everybody nerds. I think that that's like the greatest phrase ever, especially nowadays, you know, even with PC culture being what it is, you know, like I grew up when nerd wasn't a good word. Like you call someone a nerd, you're making fun of them. But nowadays people call each other nerds and it's kind of a sign of endearment because all the nerdy shit from 15, 20 years ago is now the cool thing. Right. Mm-hmm. So I can use it unilaterally, just back and forth. It doesn't matter to me because I'll use it the same term. I'll go, hey, that guy's what a fucking nerd, dude. Just the dumbest bike I've ever seen, all geared up the wrong way, whatever. Sure. And at the same time, like you and I, when we talk to students or other people, we nerd out about bikes. Like that's our jam. We just want to get into it. So, but you're right. We judge hardcore. Like my first thing whenever I see a bike is I either go, that's really cool, or that's the nerdiest shit I've ever seen. Like they're posing hard. You know, but then you stare at it longer, you know, what they're posting or what they're showing you when you're in person. The more you look at it, the more you understand based on how they're talking and how excited they are about it. Like, oh, that's their jam. Not everything that I like is what someone else is going to like. Not everybody likes choppers. You know, like we preach safety and like being good on a bike. And then my favorite kind of bike is the sketchiest, most dangerous thing you can get. You know, like that thing's a bomb ready to go off with no suspension, if any at all. Right.
And I was talking, so I was talking with Mac the other day. We were talking about this subject, and and let's be clear, like whatever it is that you ride, I'm stoked for you. And the fact that you think that that is cool, that makes, dude, that's what makes me the happiest. Yeah. Now, is it my style? And I'm going to look at something and be like, is that, dude? Like, I'm not going to rock that. And vary us off of like
for me, it'd be like a Hayabusa. Like I got major respect for that bike. I've ridden one before. You can say I learned how to ride on one, whatever you want. Like I respect those bikes. Would I ever get one or own one? Hell no, dude. I don't need a drag bike that goes in a straight line that can go 200 miles an hour. That's not what I'm about. I don't need any of that nonsense. But when I see somebody with it, I see somebody on a Hayabusa, the two things go off my brain. One, I automatically know who they are. They're a speed demon. They're going for it. And that's the bike they like. They wanted the fastest thing they can get with no modifications. They're there. But I can also respect how technologically advanced that bike was for when it came out, when it had its run. And like the performance base you could get out of a retail front, you know, without having to do anything crazy. Like I laugh at that bike because I'm like, I hate crotch rockets. I am not a fan of them. Like they're not my jam. But I have some respect for him because I'm like, if you're riding a Hayabusa daily, you are a madman. I got respect for you because you are on a missile that can blow up at any time and go faster than most bikes ever can, like just on regular surface streets. And you're doing that as your daily commute. Like that's, you know, to me, that just doesn't work. I don't understand that. But like I said, I got respect for it, but also at the same time, I'm like, fucking nerds, dude. Get a real
I know, right? Totally. And, you know, I think, you know, and I think that's what's pretty awesome about this, and it's so. This is why it's important to, if you're getting into motorcycling, jump in 100%, go all in, go figure out what scene you want to fit into, hang out as many different scenes as you possibly can, you know, and all of this information, and you know, I kind of want to bring up like, we're pretty opinionated on a lot of the stuff that we talk about, but at the same time, like. There's needs to be a pretty good balance between opinion and experience. Yeah. Right. You know, like there's a lot of choices and recommendations I would make based off of my personal experiences. Yes. And there's a lot of just opinion of, I don't like that kind of bike, but that's just me. Right. So I think there's a little bit of, both going on there, but you know, be proud of what you got and, you know, get into it and ride as many different bikes as you possibly can because they're fucking awesome.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, and speaking of like opinions and experiences, like for me, it'd be rain, right? You and I teaching motorcycling and whatnot, we understand that, you know, like if it starts raining outside, obviously the first 30 minutes is dangerous, oil, water, grime, all that other shit, right? But then once that goes away, your traction base, you don't lose a whole lot. Like even if it's raining, you still got over 90% of your traction available. And so on the grand scheme of things, you're not losing all that much. But for me, I hate riding in the rain. like, obviously I got my gear in case it rains on me, and I should check my weather app more than I do. But like, if I get caught, it is what it is. But even though I know my skills aren't going to be super affected physically riding in the rain, I know for me, like, my brain will go off and I'm like, oh, the rain, cold, miserable, wet, not as much traction as I would like to have. And people are going to be a little bit stupider because it's just like everybody on the road, it rains and suddenly they don't know how to drive and they're being more dangerous than they already were. So even though I know that my skill physically won't be affected by the rain, mentally I'm like, if I can avoid it, I'm going to avoid it. Right. That's not saying I'm a fair weather rider. Like, you and me ride in the rain all the time. It has to be like torrential downpour before we get on our bike for us to be like, yeah, I'm going to drive today or something. You know, like, so, you know, opinion, rain doesn't matter that, or like experience, rain doesn't matter that much. But opinion would be, it just sketches me out. I don't like the idea of other people being in these low traction environments that can affect me.
Right. Gotcha. You know, and the one thing to think about, and just not to correct you, but it's not 90, it's 80%
or 80%. I mean,
whatever,
even still, whatever, 80%, bro. That's still better odds than going to the casino or
I know, right? For sure, right?
20% isn't that much, but in my head,
but the one
I don't even want to take the risk.
And the one thing is like that margin for error. Let's say 20% of 100 is more than 20% of 80. So it has to be more precise and that kind of stuff. But like, you know, I think experiences help define opinions, and maybe your opinions may, you know, kind of help, you know, define what your experiences are going to be. But I think there needs to be a little bit of both on there. And, you know, like if I'm getting ready to do road trips, I'm going to seek out the person that I know has got 60,000 miles on their bike the last two years. Like, hey, how do I plan a route and that kind of thing. So,
because you're only going to plan a route or plan a ride based on, like, preferably based on the most inexperienced rider in your group. So if you can set the standard a little bit higher, it just makes it easier. Like, if you got more people riding in your group that are just as experienced, if not more experienced than you, then you don't have to worry about anything else. You're just kind of in the zone doing what you need to do. Like, you don't have to worry, hey, is everyone going to be able to make this turn? If you're the weakest rider and you can make this turn, you know everybody else can, right? Versus having to have less experienced people on the ride, which, you know, we both do on occasion. You know, we want to get more people into it. But I'm obviously not going to do, like, you know, go all the way to Oregon and back with people I've never ridden with before. Like, I'll do Salmon Falls or Turtle Rock or something somewhat minimal. But yeah, no, 100%. I'm going to, if I'm planning out something, I got to make sure I take everybody's skills accounted for so I can make the most beneficial route for safety, one, and then two, how much fun can we have? Because I don't want to plan a route where I'm doing it based on everybody in the group and I'm the best one and everyone else isn't at my skill level, because then I'm just going to be bored the whole time. And it's going to feel like a job instead of actually enjoying the reason we ride bikes.
Yeah, totally. Like, what's one of the things that when you are looking at a bike or, you know, you walk by, like, what's one of the biggest things that jumps out? Like, that's the lamest thing ever. I'm just going to preface this. I know we might piss some people off saying this or whatever like that, but like, I don't know, just for shits and giggles.
Dude,
like,
anything that looks like it came out of Orange County choppers, like those big dog chopper bikes, the fucking, dude, I hate those things so much. Now, don't get me wrong. When I grew up, I was, you know, I didn't get to watch a ton of TV. Like, my parents got basic cable and they were super like, hey, you can't watch violent stuff. You can't watch this. So Discovery Channel is kind of the most extreme stuff I can get with, like, Mythbusters and Orange County Chopper and Dirty Jobs and things like that. So I got more outside experience. So, like, I grew up watching Orange County Choppers, and that kind of, like, got me thinking about bikes and being into it. But as I get older and I see all the other styles that are out there, when I see bikes like that from that early 2000 era chopper stuff, dude, those are just the dumbest looking bikes I've ever seen. Like, I don't understand having those big ass wide tires in the rear and then, like, the super small tires up front. The front forks look cool, but I don't like the futuristic cyborg looking body setups. Generally speaking, some bikes like that catch my eye, but if I see anything that looks kind of that early 2000s chopper era, it just it makes me sick. I'm just like, dude, this is gross. Like, you're trying to make an old school style bike look new,
Right.
which the attempt needs to be made. That's the only way that an art
Right.
form like building choppers is going to flourish, is by people doing crazy, weird shit you've never seen before. But
Right.
being attached to the reality TV side and just the way some of those bikes look, it's just
Right.
not my jam. I see something like that, I'm like, pfft. You know, I get more excited seeing a sport bike that looks like anything made the last 50 years than I would be
Sure.
seeing a bike of that style, because it just feels
got
so ripped off from what the original thing is.
Right. I got you.
What about you? What about you? What's that
Uh,
one bike or style of bike you look at and you're just like, oh, that's fucking gross? I said gross, not the nerdiest thing you see. Gross. Like you're just like, oh no, sorry.
For me, and this is just personal.
It's
I know
a safe
everybody
place,
likes
Chris. You can say
whatever-
what you want.
whatever. Like the big like Loki horn pullback ape hangers. That should right. You know what I'm talking? Like it's just
Yeah.
it. You know, like especially on like, dude, I saw one on a 24 CVO the other day, and I was like, oh. And but you know, then I caught myself. I'm like, good for him. Like that's good. You know, and that's just my own
for
thing.
some people, they like it way up here where they're like relaxed back and like on a recliner kind of on their bike, and they're not
Right.
doing the same kind of riding we're doing, right?
No,
part
no,
of what attracts us to certain styles of bikes is, do those bikes meet what we like about riding, right? Like I don't like super long rides where I'm just in the same position relaxing and like I could fall asleep. You know,
Sure.
that's not a good idea for me. Like, because I will fall
Right.
asleep. But
Right. I think as you know, go ahead.
but I do think that to a certain extent, the big pullback bullhorn ape hanger things look kind of cool. I think when it's overdone and they're super ridiculous, I can appreciate them, but I'm just like, dude,
Sure.
my first thought is that's super going to be uncomfortable for me. That's not my jam.
Right.
And then I instantly go, yeah, fuck that bike. I don't like that.
Right. Well, for me, it wouldn't be able to make a U-turn, but I guess I could specify it. Like if I look at a motorcycle and it looks like it came out of a Hot Wheels collection.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's better than just targeting OCC. Like,
Or whatever, you know.
But yeah, you're right. That's what I was trying to get at. The over exaggerated cartoonish kind of Hot Wheels style. Yeah. Which can be appreciated. Like if I saw a toy of that, I'd be like, my kids would love this. This is cool, can go on my shelf. But I see a real life Hot Wheels style motorcycle. I'm like, that shit's stupid.
Right. And at the end of the day, you know, they're all good parts. And what I can respect from this stuff, and what I do learn from the bikes that I don't necessarily like or wouldn't fit my style.
Yeah.
I try to appreciate it for the craftsmanship that went into it. The fact that was like somebody maybe drew that on a napkin and had to follow through to build it. Yeah. And, you know, and I know that that person didn't build a bike and could give two shits whether I think it's cool or not.
Yeah. I don't care what people think about my bike, the way I have it set up. Some people might not like it. I get a lot of compliments on it for sure. But at the end of the day, dude, I don't give a shit. All that matters to me is that I like the way that bike looks.
Right. You know, and when someone does, I think just being a good person and a good fellow rider is internally, we may be judging that stuff. Yeah. And that's okay because we're human beings. But my whole thing is what I like to tell everybody how cool their bike is, whether just to say like, dude, and a lot of people be like, you know, it's kind of like saying in all due respect. And if you preface it with, well, it's not what I would ride, but you know, I'm just like, dude, that's a sweet bike. Do you like it? Yeah. Have you done anything to it? Yeah. When you can see that you're connected to somebody the same way about something, like I know there's like three questions I could ask you right now, and you're like, we'd be here for the next 3 days. So, and I think that's what we owe each other as riders, the fellowship, the family, is we need to, you know, maybe think a little bit twice on how hard we judge different styles. And my whole philosophy is if I don't know about something, I'm going to ask and I'm going to talk about it. Like, oh, like why did you put that extended swing arm on it? And if the answer is it looks cool, fuck it, it's sweet.
That looks cool.
It looks cool, right?
No, to get back to the big old pullbacks, just because it's still stuck on my mind right now. That's not my jam, which we've obviously kind of gone over. But like you said, I can appreciate the work that went into it. You know, because if it's
Right.
more than 14 inches on most bikes, the bars
Right.
themselves are more than 14 inches long. That means you had to redo all the cable lines. You had to, if it was
Right.
carbureted, you got to redo the throttle idle or do a harness extension if it's a twist grip sensor setup.
Right.
The brake line, your clutch line, like all your wiring harnesses for all your controls over there, depending on what you have. And especially those huge ones that pull all the way back. It's like most people that are going to do these big pullback bars, they're not going to want 5 or 6 cables and wire harnesses hanging out, distracting from the showpiece that is the focal point of the bike, these huge swingback bars. So now, depending on how it's bent, they're going to have to drill holes, internally run all these cables, make sure they slide right, make sure they work right. And anybody that's done an internal cable bar job of any length, whether it's just the standard like 2.5-inch mid-bend little sport bars going all the way up to T-bars or these big ape hangers, no matter what, it is a pain in the ass. So like when you get these people, all these people get the factory 47 meat hooks on it and they go, oh, well, why can't you just swap the chrome ones out for the black ones so it looks better? Like, dude, you just made this tech spend like 3 hours painfully getting these things in, making it look right. And then after you're like, oh, I didn't like this color. Then why'd you buy that one to begin with?
I know, right?
Like, so, but yeah, so I can appreciate like whenever I see a bike I don't like, you know, my first thought is, oh, that bike's stupid. That's the nerdiest thing I've ever seen. But then before I say that, I go, well, what went into it? And I go, oh, okay. So like they put a lot of work into this to make it work right. Not my jam, not what I like, but I can appreciate the craftsmanship behind or the engineering behind why they did what they did to get that set up.
Right. And I think this just brings in, you know, talk to each other, inspire, you know, build it, you know, just, I think we need to maybe, and I'm even guilty of this too. And just, you know, thinking about this stuff, I think one of my goals is to be less judgy on stuff that's different than what I like.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And not that I am really, but, you know, you and I hanging out, having a couple of beers, we talk a bunch of shit and people talk shit in motorcycling and that's fine. Yeah. But I think that the more that we ask about different things, I think that just broadens our appreciation for the whole process.
And you can pick and choose little things. Like if I don't like a bike, I never dislike 100% of what a bike is. You know, like the Orange County chopper style bikes, that early 2000s chopper stuff. I don't like those bikes, but I do like the front ends on them. I love the big, long, super raked out front ends on those bikes. I don't like the rear tires being so wide. I like skinny, small tires. That's kind of my jam. The old school, like 60s and 70s chopper stuff. That's my favorite. But like, I can appreciate what they're pulling from that, even though I don't like the bike overall. It's not like I dislike any bike 100%. There's always something about a bike, even if it's not your jam, you could take away and be like, oh, that was really cool what they did there. Or the way they have it set up, that makes sense. You know, and at the end of the day, it'll never be 100% hating on a bike because at the end of the day, it is a bike. You know, it's a motor and 2 wheels. It's a freedom machine. It gets you going. Like, there's still something to be appreciated about it. And I wouldn't want to shit on someone's bike, you know, to them, or like even post on the internet and be like, oh, this bike's hella stupid. I don't like this. I wouldn't do that because I don't want to alienate other people from motorcycling and think it's all divisive. There are plenty of people out there doing that. So I don't need to contribute to that. I want to get more people on bikes to understand, because I get more people on bikes. There's more people in the world that understand me and how I think, and I can be more appreciated by it. So if I can appreciate what everyone else is bringing to the table, even if it's not my jam, in turn, I am being appreciated for what I like. And that makes people feel more included, because the last thing I want to do is exclude anybody, you know?
Right. And how stoked do you get when somebody stops to tell you how cool your bike is, or ask you a question like, or how'd you get that paint? Like, what the hell?
Oh man, it's hard because like certain people I don't want to say how I got it, and then other people I'll tell, you know, because it's it's you know, I'm not supposed to have that. You know, like I got a pretty unique paint job on it.
Yeah, which makes it even cooler.
Yeah. No, dude, it's crazy because like, you know, I've said it before, like, you know, I ride my bike to class. I expect to get compliments on it just because that's my experience. I'd be more surprised with someone not asking about my bike and not complimenting it when they see it versus like me at a random gas station at 5 a.m. getting ready to go to work. And then just some random construction worker dude comes up, gives me a fist bump, and is like, dude, your bike's hella sick. I like your bike. Like that gets me way more excited than anything else. I love that, you know, because I don't expect it, especially when you don't expect someone to compliment your bike. It just means so much more. You know, when I go to a Harley dealership or I go into an event, I expect people to compliment my bike. You know, not because I think my bike is the coolest bike in the world. Obviously, I do because it's mine. But like in that general setting, you know, people are going to compliment your bike, whether they like it or not. It's just kind of a common courtesy thing. So to have it happen organically and randomly in situations, dude, it gets me so excited. You know, that somebody else likes what I like or someone else can appreciate what I like. It gets, dude, it makes me so happy.
Yeah, for sure. You know,
what about you?
I dig it. You know, one thing that I just want to throw out there too is I gotta be kind of careful just to today's how everything is like when you don't have to ask me twice to talk about my motorcycle too. Yeah. I'll tell you everything fucking about it. But one thing that I have noticed is I started to be a little bit more selective of the details that I've given to somebody because of, you know, the downside to having such a rad motorcycle community that we into that we're also kind of targets for that too. Yeah. And, you know, I don't want to give somebody an inventory of all the cool shit I've done to my bike that puts it on the list of somebody'd want to check out. But I'm very grateful that I'm in a spot where I have a bike where number one, that I have a bike to begin with that I think is totally awesome. And secondly, that I'm fortunate enough to have a bike that somebody else thinks is cool too, as much as I do. Yeah. Now that's not the reason, but I'm not going to argue how cool that makes me feel. Like all the hard work, that took me to get the bike that I have now, taking care of it. And it's just an affirmation. It's not the reason, but it's definitely, it's so cool, man. When somebody stops to tell you and it's really like, that bike is so cool. You did a really good job with that. I mean, that's a solid, and it makes you feel good for sure.
So besides bikes, what about like the gear you wear? Like, because I'm not gonna lie, I do judge people on what they wear on a bike. Yeah, you know, like I see them wearing certain things, I'm just like, oh my gosh, here we go. Here's another wannabe. Sure. You know, but everyone starts somewhere. You know, like I'm not wearing the same gear I started out with. I'm wearing completely different stuff now. No, you know, so like, and
I think a lot of that for me specifically, due to my size, I'm kind of limited in a lot of the things. You know, I'm 6'3", you know, 200 pounds. You know, having stuff that's, you know, pants for to be specific. Like there's like two brands, and my favorite brand is Tobacco because they come in a 36. And just on a side note, anybody buying pants, always buy one length longer than your normal streetwear. Yes. And if you know, you know, and otherwise just take my word for it. But like style a little bit, you know, my personal style is I like to have a little bit more streetwear orientated look than if I was to come off of a track, you know. Can't really, you know, knock on anybody for wearing high vis and doing that. But, you know, there's, you know, specific gloves that I have. I kind of got a glove problem. I got, you know, 5-6 pairs of gloves.
Little glove problem.
Right. You know, but there's also things that I know that work that don't, you know, I don't even care. I'll tell everybody I wear chaps when it's cold, like whatever. You know, and I think once you find your personal style and, you know, stereotypically cruiser Harley people have a certain style, other things, you know, and I think when you get associated with the brand of motorcycle, to be able to wear that brand of gear, like you ride a BMW, you're going to have BMW gear. You're probably going to have some climb gear for sure, because in that environment, you can't afford not to have your gear work, right? Where I like my personal styles, I like the Kevlar and armor lined, you know, streetwear looking stuff, hoodies and pants, and
I want to be as protected as I can be without looking protected.
Exactly, right. 100%. And they're, you know, on a hot summer day, if I end up riding in a t-shirt or whatever, I kind of ride a little bit differently. You know what I mean? When we go rip Salmon Falls, I definitely got my armor in my pants. I got my airbag vest on. like, I know we're going to go get it. So I do it accordingly.
Yeah, but if it's 110 degrees outside and you're just going home from work, it's a 10-minute ride. Yeah, dude, I'll go in a t-shirt once or twice a year for sure. If it's like uncomfortably hot. Yeah.
Right. Now, along with that, how we've kind of experienced different aspects and like, all right, cool. Even have, something as we've experienced, like carry latex gloves with you for when it's cold and rainy or whatever. Have you noticed that how you ride your bike is a little bit different than when you started out? Like,
100%. For me, when I first started riding, I wanted to be the last thing I wanted was to be considered a fair weather rider.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the people I would hang out with or be associated with at the beginning were all going to be Harley people. And a good portion of them were either going to be in the chopper community or in the motorcycle club community. And in those communities, you ride every day, or else you're considered a bitch or a wimp if you don't ride in all the kinds of weather. So the first couple of years I really got into motorcycling, I would force myself to ride in the coldest weather, or no matter what the weather was. Like, I wanted to do that so I can have the experience to be like, all right, cool, I've done this, I know this, I've earned the respect from other people for it. And now in my riding career, I'm just kind of, I won't say I'm a fair weather rider now, because I'll still ride in any kind of weather. It's just, do I got the spook or not? Like if I get up in the morning and I just got that weird feeling where it's like, I don't know, man. Like, if I get that weird feeling where I'm not sure, I'm not going to force myself to get on a bike. I've already been in those situations. I know I can get out of it, but I'd rather just be a little bit more comfortable than not.
Sure.
So, like, because I avoid highways at all costs. Like when I go to work, 99 is the fastest. I got 2 stop signs from my house is getting on the highway, and then, I go 20, 30 miles and then I get to work. Right. So like some days I'll take the highway if I know there's not a lot of traffic, but generally speaking, I'll take an extra half hour of my commute and take the back roads on a 2-lane highway through the orchards or freeway or whatever, just to avoid as many people. So I'm just cruising, enjoying myself. So when I show up to work or wherever I'm going, I'm just like, cool, relaxed. I got my therapy session in. I feel good. You know, I'm not jittery or anything. So, but I think it's important for people to push themselves in those unlikely scenarios so they can experience it once or twice. So then they kind of have a better gauge of what their skill set is or what they're doing.
Sure. And you really touched on that. And that's one of the things I personally pride myself on is like I know people think I'm a psychopath for how much I ride my bike in the rain when it's fucking cold, all that. But I don't know. It's better than not, you know, and
it's a feeling of authority. Cause like when I show up to work or I show up to an event or I show up anywhere and it's like the weather is not ideal, but I show up on my bike, people just kind of look and they're like, oh damn, like this guy's serious, you know? So it's like, just like, right? Dog, what's up? You know?
Right. So I think that's kind of cool because just like we have people judging us for the type of bikes and how our bike looks, I also think we can judge each other on the type of rider that we're going to, that we see. Like, oh, you whatever, like that, you know, that group that we saw rolling a Turtle Rock. Okay, cool. You know what I mean? Like, all right, whatever. But that kind of gives you the credibility of, dude, like when you can look at somebody and tell that do they ride motorcycles or do they just ride motorcycles?
Yeah.
Like, and to get that credibility is pretty cool.
I want to talk about music next because you and I have different views of music on bikes. But before I do, because we were talking about gear and you were saying like always get longer pants. One thing that I want to make sure I tell everybody all the time is when you're going to get a jacket for riding motorcycles, okay, if you got like a crazy wingspan like me, like I'm 6'2" and my wingspan's like 6'6", 6'7", something like it's ridiculous. So I got to get 2 sizes too big just to cover up my wrists in any given situation. Most motorcycle jackets got those adjustable cuffs and collars and such, so you don't have to worry about it. But the main thing that I tell people is when you're getting the jacket, find one that's not super snug, but kind of snug on the chest so you could zip it up smooth, and then get one size bigger. Because you can never wear too much stuff. Like even, you know, if you got one of those $500 super thermal controlled jackets, that's not going to stop you from freezing your ass off when it's 28 degrees outside early in the morning when you're riding. You know, so maybe you want to put on another sweatshirt underneath or wear like a freeze out jacket or a windbreaker or something. but you don't want to spend all this money on a really nice jacket, and then it's super cold one day, you got to layer up, and then you can't really zip it up. And then if you do, it's just tight and uncomfortable. You don't got the flex. So get pants that are a couple inches longer than you want. You can always roll up the cuffs. It's not always uncool. Like, you make it look cool, you know?
Yeah.
And then get a jacket that fits, and then get one size bigger in case you want to load it up with another sweatshirt or a plaid shirt or whatever. I'm so stoked. Okay.
All right.
So music on motorcycles, right? What's your take on it?
First of all, I mean, getting into it, I wouldn't recommend throwing audio in the mix like straight away. But that's just outside of that. Like me personally, I gotta have music when I ride. Like I really do. I got a pretty decent stereo on my bike. I also have in-helmet audio equipment. But I think for me, number one, how much of a music fan I am and how important it is to my mental stability. But and all the action sports that I participated in, snowboarding, wakeboarding, skateboarding, all of that. I come from an era where the only exposure to that was in actual videos on VHS cassette, that sort of stuff. Right. And, coming up as a skater and a snowboarder, like you would always, my whole motivation of practicing cool shit is like when I was to get a video part, like what would my soundtrack be? Right.
I do that all the time.
And I think like the song that resonates with me the most in snowboarding is Cowboys from Hell, because it was like my idol Tom Burt and TB5, I think, running that. And so I've always associated that. So anything extreme that I do, and when I ride, like I want the soundtrack to the experience that I'm in. And so I'm always riding and thinking that I'm in, like, this is a soundtrack to my video part, if you will. And that's my motivation. But, like, how about yourself? You don't listen to music at all, do you?
No, I got ADHD, dog. So I'm, but I'm the same way as you. Like, I grew up on that era of skate videos and snowboard videos and, and video games too. Like, to think that someone from my generation's music influences weren't dictated by Tony Hawk Pro Skater is kind of ridiculous. I mean, like, those games set a generational path on like getting into punk rock and heavy metal and stuff like that. And then like when I was younger, I was into flatland skimboarding, and the company's not around anymore. They come and go, but there's one called Kaida. And one of their video edits that they posted has one of the best soundtracks I've seen on that style of video in a long time. So I'm the same as you. Like, when I hear music, I'm like, oh, this would be good to ride to, or like, this would be cool if this was like my demo video of me doing stunts or like just riding or whatever. But me, with my ADHD, like, I love music so much that I will focus on that over what I'm doing. So like every bike I own, there's no radio, there is no clock, there is no speakers. I don't wear a headset, none of that, because I'll be more focused on what song is playing in my mind doing my video edit while I'm riding than what I'm doing. So for me, it just can't be there, which is why I love riding with you, because since you're not distracted by that, you got your tune set up. I just got to make sure I'm not cracking the throttle too hard to keep up with you. And then I could hear all the same stuff you're listening to.
Right. Well, I mean, for me, it helps me focus and ride better, I think, because it's like, it's motivating. Like, I have to throw down and whatever song it is. And there's times where it might be a little bit more mellow and chill, and it might be a little bit more aggressively. But the one thing I do have to be careful of is I have to be careful of when I listen to what song. Like if I get too pumped too soon in the ride, like, I'm going to get myself in trouble.
Dude, one song that you showed up to a class with playing once was that band, the Gourds, that covered the Snoop Dogg song. Song. So after I heard that, dude, I'm not gonna lie, if I know I have time to, like, I'm not running late or I'm not sleeping in and being lazily getting out of bed, like I got up early and I got some time to get ready before I leave for work, dude, that's one of there's like 3 or 4 songs, that's one of them that's like my warm up to ride song. Because I just think it's so funny having a gangster rap song being sung bluegrass style of just like banjo intro, the dun, 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 dun. I'm just like, all right, now I'm ready to ride. It's not the song I would ride to. It's the song that gets me pumped. Like, okay, I'm gonna hop on a bike.
Right. And I got another question after that. But for those of us that are, for those of you that are wondering, it's the band is called the Gourds, and it's a bluegrass cover of Snoop Dogg's Gin and Juice. Yeah, it is fantastic.
It is good.
It just so happens to be that you can find it on the Soul Motorcycling playlist.
Yes.
Available on Spotify as well. It's a little shameless plug there.
Yeah.
One of the other places I really like that get me pumped is, or just the experiences that I enjoy on a bike is smashing through the gears as you're rolling on the freeway. Yeah. So like if you had to associate a song with rolling on the freeway or just passing people or going, getting up to speed, you got a couple that kind of you would have in mind. Obviously, you're not listening to it when you're on the bike, but if you that what sensation I'm talking about, like just clutching through the gear.
Because those songs I have, and I play them in my head when I'm driving my wife's car when I wish I was on a bike. Like I'm getting on the on-ramp, I'm like, dude, I could be throttling out right now, and there'll be certain songs playing that I associate to it. One of them is I'm Alive by Johnny Thunder. It's an older song, but I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about how it's one of his green room songs that gets all the comedians pumped before they go out. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. I'll listen to it. And the intro's bonkers. And then you listen to the whole thing. It's like a 2.5 minute song or something. It's not super long. But that one, dude, that's one of those songs that gets me amped. What about, while I'm looking for the other one, I'm trying to think of what is one of the ones you dig?
I like Fade to Black by the Rolling Stones.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a good one. I got a pretty good visual going on in my head for that one. Ace of Spades.
Yeah.
Motorhead. Yeah. Ace of Spades is a good one.
Yeah, for sure.
And then probably I think my favorite is Flirting with Disaster by Molly Hatchet. I love that song, dude. If I could get a Molly Hatchet t-shirt, I'd be pretty pumped on that one.
I know what it is. It is it's Home is for the Heartless by Parkway Drive. That's one of those heavy metal screamo ones that just the intro riff on it just gets me pumped to do things. In that same genre you're listening to. Another one that reminds me a lot of the Gourds covering Snoop Dogg's Gin and Juice. Similar to that, it's another bluegrass song. It's Blue Eyes Dancing by Matt Heckler with the lead singer guitarist from the Lost Dog Street Band. That's from the edit that was done by Gems on VHS on YouTube. That's another one where it's just that intro. I don't know. It's just the banjo mandolin intro thing. Whenever I hear those little quick tones just getting done, that just gets me pumped like I'm getting on a bike.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think my favorite punk rock song is the song Disconnected by a band called Face to Face. Like that's my all time. Like I know if I hear that, I'm in the zone, whatever.
Oh, if it's punk songs, it's going to be two of them. One is going to be Where Eagles Dare by the Misfits. That's another one.
Yeah.
And then the other one's the one you showed me, the Whatever song. Because that's just classic punk rock. Just for whatever reason that one gets me pumped too.
Right, and the Misfits. I also like Last Caress. It's a pretty good one. Dude, some old Ramones is actually pretty fun to listen to. As well.
Oh, Fugazi's Waiting Room. That's another one.
Yes.
When we're riding and that comes on your playlist and I hear that one, dude, that is probably the number one song that I like jamming out to with you while we're riding is Fugazi's Waiting Room.
Yeah, dude, and just how the drums come in.
Yep, the drums and the bass line and just like oh, dude, yeah. So for sure.
Now, do you think when we talked about judging and that sort of stuff, I mean, stereotypically, do you think certain genres of riders you would associate certain music to?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%. I hate calling you out, but like, I know that 9 times out of 10, if there's a song playing while you're riding, is going to be one of two songs. It's either going to be 90s hip hop, or more than likely it's going to be 80s metal. Like that's just how it goes. And that totally fits you. Like the way you ride a bike, your style, the whole thing. Like I know looking at you like, yeah, 80s metal's where this guy's at, or like punk rock or whatever. But then like you see other riders, and even just looking, you don't even have to see the rider. I can just look at someone's bike and like, I'm already thinking what gear they're wearing, what kind of rider they are, and what kind of music they listen to. And 9 times out of 10, it's right on the money. You know, like people kind of, they file into these like genres and spots of what kind of stuff they listen to, for sure.
Right. And I think that, you know, stereotypically, if you look at a certain type of rider, and I think one of the projects I want to do is like take a classic Harley rider with a classic Harley song and for each different type of genres, and then switch them up. Like do an off-road, like a track video on a sport bike with some, you know, Born to Be Wild or something like that. Like, I think that would be pretty cool to do. And, you know, I think that once again, there's tasteful style, and then there's tasteful accessories and that sort of stuff. Like, you know, motorcycle audio is its own thing now, which is crazy, you know? And, you know, lining your bags with sound deadening and that sort of stuff. It's like, wow, dude, like these, I mean, because I come from the early mini trucking days of stereos and that sort of stuff, right? And some of the stuff that you're seeing on these dudes' bikes is like, holy cow. Like,
dude, I remember,
it's awesome.
I remember when I first started working at Harley, when I was just a porter, you know, so all we did was move bikes around, wash them, deliver them to customers, that kind of thing. And seeing the variety of sound systems you have on bikes. Because one of the requirements of a porter is we got to detail and wash bikes. That's like a complimentary service that the dealership I was at did for bikes getting serviced. You know, it was optional because some people don't like random people or dealerships touching their bikes besides mechanical work. Like they'll hire a detailer or whatever. But like going and seeing these sound systems, knowing these ones are waterproof and these ones aren't. And seeing like these pimped out baggers that got like 100 speakers on them and not a single one of them's waterproof. And you're just like, they spent so much money on audio. And like, if they get caught in the rain, that's like 10 grand down the drain right there. Like it gets a little wild, and some are excessive, but the majority of the time I see it, they're pretty tasteful. Like I'm not a big fan of, you know, cutting out saddlebag lids or cutting out saddlebags to put more speakers on. That's to me, that just feels like Pimp My Ride, where they're just doing too much of one thing on a bike. But then when they're about to leave the dealership or leave the event and they're playing their music, and it's just like, you feel like you're at a concert, and then you hear the bike ride away and you're just like, oh, there's a concert on wheels leaving. You know, I can appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And there's times where I'm more of, I get it, you know, my stuff is good enough, but if I need to replace it, I can replace it relatively, you know, and it's cool, you know, different generations. And at the end of the day, I'm like, shit, it's still a stereo on a bike. And, if there was like, okay, so let's say you're stuck in traffic or you roll up to an intersection, you see some kids and that sort of stuff. And I usually try to be respectful and turn my music down when I come to a stop. But if there was one song, like, I guess it kind of depends, that is going to draw attention to you and you're playing at a high volume, what would be your stoplight song?
I can tell you what it wouldn't be.
Okay, cool. What would it be?
It would definitely not be anything by Kid Rock, especially that I'm a Cowboy song. I would not want to be caught dead anywhere having that song play while I'm on a bike. To me, that's just too cheesy. But a song that I'd want people to do, I think it changed, like based on the scenario and what day of the week it is. Because I got one of those, like my playlists are super chaotic. Like like when I organize songs, I don't organize them by genre. I organize them by how they make me feel. Yeah. You know, like I have emotional playlists, not genre playlists. You know, like sometimes I'll do the auto-populate one. Like if I'm in a mood for just kind of like country or Americana stuff, like I'll do the predisposition Spotify stuff for the things I like. But generally speaking, like my gym workout playlist, every song jumps genre to genre. One thing will be like old school New York hip hop, like you have Wu-Tang Clan or Cool G and the Gang or whatever. And then like it'll go straight into, you know, like some old school bluegrass, like The Devil Makes Three or something. And then it'll go straight into Parkway Drive and heavy metal, or then I'll go to instrumental stuff, or, you know, like I'll do for my workout ones, like all the songs that keep me pumped and activated, like just get me hyped. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, they're just hype up songs, right? Or there'll be like ones where I'm feeling a little emo or whatever, and it won't just be emo music on my playlist, but it'll also be songs that like it could be heavy metal songs or country songs or something that makes me that describes the feeling that I'm feeling, so I have something to emulate with. So for me, it would be based on the ride, because every day is different riding. Like I don't always listen to the same music in the car, but I don't really listen to anything riding. But like I'll pull up to an intersection, I hear someone playing some music, and I'm like, oh, that shit's cool. I'm gonna have to look that up when I get home or try to discover it. But I don't think I have a specific song that like I would want people to hear me with.
I think the funnest one for me to play at the stoplight at a loud volume is like Katy Perry's "Firework" or "Roar," just for, just for fun.
Dude, my wife sent me something like that on Instagram. She DM'd me. I don't know. He's like a club writer or something that does these Instagram reels, and he listens to just the cheesiest music.
For sure.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's how I imagine you. Whenever I see that, I'm like, oh, that's Chris.
Right. Some Rage Against the Machine or something like
Beastie
that.
Boys.
Oh, Beastie Boys is
Rage
a good one
Against the
for
Machine
sure.
or Beastie Boys. Those ones, like any of those get pumped for sure.
Right. No, but that's cool. And I think that, with the fact that you made the comments, like you can tell what I'm listening to by how I'm riding.
Yeah.
But that's just because, we've spent so many miles on the road together. But to know that I have a soundtrack associated with me when I show up, that like entrance music, dude, that's my walk up tune.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's adds to the coolness of it. But so that's why I ride with music, is because I'm always riding my own video. I've always wanted to have my own walk up song. You know what I mean? Like if I was in the big leagues walking up to the plate, like what's going to be your walk up song, or what would be my pro wrestling entrance song? It's all kind of tied around.
Now that I'm like really thinking about it, if I had to choose a song, it would be pretty much any song off of Dance Gavin Dance's Jackpot Juicer album.
Okay.
I mean, I am one of the biggest Dance Gavin Dance fans in the world. I don't care what people say. They're one of the greatest bands of all time. Like, even with the lineup changes and how much they've progressed over the years, album to album, from when they first started to their sound now, I don't think they've ever made a bad song. But that Jackpot Juicer album, for whatever reason, it's changed my life. There's very few songs I've listened to which I can't describe what's changed in my life. I just know that when the first time I heard this song, something clicked and I was never the same. Yeah. Right. So if I wanted a song for someone to hear on my bike, if I had music on my bike when I pulled up somewhere, it'd be anything off that album for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's just, I just think it's great. Plus, I just want everybody to experience Dance Gavin Dance, whether you like it or not. Everyone should listen to it at least once and then make their decision afterwards. But I think they're the greatest.
And that's a whole second conversation that we can get in, that we can save to another time. But the fact that you said anything off of the album, like when you can find a whole album that is just nothing but good songs, like, and we're so, like, I always call myself an ADD DJ, because I'll put on the jam. I'll let the song play for like 2 minutes and then I'll to the next one. I'm like, next, that sort of thing. But when you have a whole album like that, I mean, I think one of those for me is, and once again, I'm dating myself a little bit, but Soundgarden, Bad Motorfinger. Like that, there's not a bad song on that album, and that song too, Rusty Cage. Fuck yeah, I got to do that one. But yeah, and I think that it's cool because here you and I, we've spent thousands of miles riding together, and we've talked about motorcycling so much, and is on the things that we're very similar on, we're completely polar opposites on some of the other stuff, right? And the fact that we are a similar generation, but a little, just close enough to where it overlaps and it moves and stuff, where we still have a lot of similar, because where I'm more, I guess, in the primary stages of the scene developing with, rock and roll, music and that sort of stuff, where by how I watched it changed. And then I been around long enough to watch it change into something that you're into.
Yeah. You started in those genres' infancies. I started in their adolescence, and now we're at the age where we're at the adult phase of those genres of music. While we see the whole music scene change entirely.
Right.
So,
and just like our evolution and our tastes and our styles of riding and bikes have evolved, just like our taste of music.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like if you talked to me 20 years ago, I did not like rap music at all. I thought it was garbage. Country music and rap music, I was like, this isn't music. This is terrible. I don't like any of this. Right. You know? And then now at this age, there's not a single genre of music I don't listen to. And like, I can appreciate everything now. So I think it's also just an experience thing over time. Like, because you know, I can listen to all the post-hardcore stuff from the early 2007s, which is probably my closest jam of genre music that I love the most. You know, I'm still listening to the same stuff I was listening to in high school, but like, you know, my like songs on my Spotify goes up about 200 songs every month. Like there's always newer things that I like, and I'll change genres over time. Like I'll be in one phase where I'm usually listening to one style of music, and then it'll change the next month where I'm focusing on another style of music. And then there'll be some days, like if I'm cleaning around the house or doing yard work or something, you know, I'll just put random on my like list and just keep skipping until I feel whatever I'm feeling at that moment.
Right. And, you know, I think just evolution and experiences that kind of shape us. And yeah, I mean, it's just cool, man. It's just like how different we all can be, but we're all the same. Like we're all relatively similar people. And if we, you know, just like listening to music or looking at a different bike or riding on a bike and that sort of stuff. Like I remember, you know, in high school, like if you were into one sort of type of music, then you got shit on for this.
Yeah.
If you were, you know, and they kind of the type of music, you know, was associated to with the clique that you were in. And you know, like the rednecks, they all listen to this shit.
Yeah.
You know, the hood rat kids, they were listening to this stuff, you know. I think one thing that's true across all time and genres is that Wu-Tang is forever.
Wu-Tang's forever. Wu-Tang's for the children. Yeah.
It is for the children, right?
And just to double back real quick, for anybody that likes the I'm a Cowboy or whatever the name of the song is by Kid Rock, I'm not trying to shit on you. That's just the one song I don't want to be associated with. Okay, you can listen to that song, you could show up on it. If it makes you feel great, it makes you feel great. That song does not make me feel great, so I'm not going to have that play ever. But unless
you're in the Delta, unless you're in the Delta on a pontoon boat, and there's definitely one American flag bikini on the boat, like that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man.
Yeah.
I think this was a great combo. I mean,
dude.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. And I hope it comes across like the whole point was not to just shit on everybody the entire time, but bring people through our process. Like, hey, people are going to shit on you for what you like, but that's okay.
Right.
What matters more is that you're in the scene, not, you know, what you're doing in the scene. It just matters that you're in, you know, because we're all going to be a little bit different. We're all not going to like the same thing, but the one thing that we all have in common is we all like listening to music and we all like riding motorcycles. And so it's like, dude, there's some kind of common ground you can meet with on anybody that rides any kind of bike or listens to any kind of music. There's something that either one can appreciate the other without having to wholeheartedly like everything.
And you know, and I also think it's cool to like, I embrace the stereotype that I'm in, you know, I mean, even within my own stereotype, I still am like, okay, what level do I need to go? And that kind of stuff. And I think one thing that you and I make sure that we do is we also don't take ourselves too seriously about any of this.
Because there'll be people that there'll be people that are listening to us go like, oh, these fucking nerds over here. And like, there's going to be someone that's thinking of us that way. And then other people that be like, wow, these guys are so insightful. I never heard this before. You know, there's always going to be different kind of people, which is fine.
And I think as long as everybody always remembers that, you know, we are the author of our own motorcycle story. We write what it means to us. And I think, you know, the whole aspect of riding is like living in a choose your own adventure book. But, you know, like, hey, if I do this, is this how it's going to work out? And I think that's the fun part of it is discovering and getting experiences, developing your own opinions, you know, based off of your experiences, and, you know, just be nice to each other and realize that not everybody's cup of tea is everybody's cup of tea.
For sure.
Know? Doesn't mean that it's still not awesome.
Yep. All right. I think we're going to end it here. Yeah, dude, this was great. Everybody go ahead and check back in next week for the next episode.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.